Meanwhile, in India, they are just perhaps beginning to come to grips with how bad the pandemic has been and how much worse it could still become. They just reported 42,000 new cases and 3,998 deaths, the vast majority of which, thankfully, are previously unreported deaths. So they've been averaging about 500 reported deaths per day in recent days, which is still a large amount. It's more than the US is reporting, but it is much less than we had just a couple of months ago when the Damage Report and a lot of other media was focusing on what was going on in India. And there is some good news. For instance, the daily positivity rate is at 2.27%, less than 3% for 30 straight days. The WHO has declared the COVID positivity rate below 5% to be within the safe zone. Obviously, safe is a relative word. Right. More than 500 people are dying every day. And that is the actual reported number. How accurate is that? Probably about as accurate as any number in India, as well as a number of other countries when it comes to COVID. One thing we do believe we know is that less than 7% of the population is fully vaccinated. Now, it's a very large country, so bear that in mind, but that is not a great number at this point. And that's not the worst news for India. We're gonna get to that in a sec, JR, but what do you think?
Yeah, I guess slowly but surely, and we talk about the small signs of progress here, but as things change, and I guess as more and more potential vaccines get spread and shared across the world, populations like this, we talk about the numbers of people in India. It's almost, maybe it's a natural approach to the way this is gonna happen, but again, that if you already know the situation, the response has to be at least somewhat near what the problem is. And then get to a point where this gets changed. But this is a disaster. If you think of other people's lives and the way we talk about what's happening here in other people's lives, that's just where they are and where they happen to have to live. And I've thought about that more lately. Just like, man, I'm sitting in this one spot, lucky enough to have the opportunity to get access to vaccines or access to be able to separate myself from folks and still work. Many people in the world do not have that. Yet we have so many people here who are complaining over putting on a mask.
Exactly.
Straight up while they fly. Think about your privilege. Think about what the opportunities you have in your life versus other folks and what they're dealing with, and maybe you'll calm down.
Exactly, and look, what we know that they're dealing with is bad enough, but it might indeed be worse than that. So the number of people who have died in the coronavirus pandemic in India so far is likely to exceed 3 million, nearly 10 times the official death toll. So the official count is at 307,231. That is an outdated number, but it is way less than what is believed to be true. So this is the result of a study that took into account excess deaths. So how many people died versus how many would you expect to have died in this time? Similar work has been done in the United States, and barring better explanations, it is likely that in a pandemic where information is not necessarily 100% accurate, those extra deaths can probably be attributed to the pandemic. Well, they have different scenarios. A conservative scenario estimates that there's actually about 600,000, but it can go as high as 1.6 or even as high as 4.2 million people in India already having died as a result of this if we had fully accurate information, which of course will never come. We will never know for sure exactly how many millions of people died. And that's bearing in mind that of course the pandemic is still going on. And with just 7% of the population vaccinated and the Delta variant spreading fast, it is possible that it could get just as bad as it was a few months ago. Any final thoughts, JR?
No, man. Yeah. It's really bad. If we keep an eye on India this whole time and it continues to somehow get worse, I wish again, this is the second straight. I wish we could find the solution. This is a problem, bro.
Agreed. For more political news breakdowns, interviews, stories of activism, and me trying my hardest to care about the occasional big celebrity news story, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/thedamagereport. And you can ring the bell wherever it is so you don't miss anything.